Hey Recovery Girls, Misty here. I'm talking to you a little bit quietly today. I'm at a beautiful park near where I live under a weeping willow tree that I love, that I have this relationship with. So here I am in the middle of this gorgeous tree, underneath these branches by this beautiful pond, and it's just a happy place in my world. I wanted to talk to you today about the topic of trust. I was in a fun situation yesterday. I was in a swing dance lesson. And for any of you that know anything about swing, it's a partner dance, and you learn to lead and learn to follow. And right now I am taking lessons to learn how to follow in this dance, which is super fun, and I love to do it. And I've had a little bit of experience, and anyway, I was super challenged yesterday when the instructor said something sort of in passing. Even it wasn't like a big point he was trying to make that I could it wasn't meant to just sort of shatter my world like it did, but I was really struck with it. He said, learning to follow is about trust. And when he said it, my heart just sort of stopped. And I have been somewhat rattled ever since. That's my challenge. That's my challenge. It's a challenge for many of us that have been wounded in some way. Most of us have some trust challenges in our lives, and certainly when others have been hurtful to us, we often transfer that mistrust of others onto God, and then we struggle in our relationship with God. So I wrote down a couple little things I wanted to share with you today. Okay, so what I noticed about myself yesterday was that I was starting to try to predict what the lead was going to do. And so I would just try to anticipate it and be ready and move before I had been given the actual signal or nudge from my lead in order for me to follow. So this is not actually following. Following is slightly behind, nuanced, like split second behind the lead, and requires me to stay very, very present and sensing what my lead is doing. So I tend to be very hyper vigilant. I tend to be very guarded, walls up. I'm looking. I am very sensitive. I am sensing, but I'm sensing to the point where I'm trying to jump in front of whatever a perceived threat may be, or a what I think someone wants or needs me to do sometimes. So what does it mean in my relationship with God and in recovery to follow God's lead in my life and surrender to His will, as we talk about in the third step in recovery, waiting on the nudge. So there is a line in the Serenity Prayer that talks about, it says, trusting that He, God, will make all things right as I surrender to His will. And so trusting that God will make all things right as I surrender to His will, which is a moment by moment practice, lifelong practice that I get to improve on, and God keeps earning my trust by who He is. What am I trusting Him to do? Am I trusting Him to keep me from all harm? No, I'm trusting Him to be who He is and to live into His care, that He has care for me and that He has good plans for my life. So what is it with other people? In my relationships with other people, there are some things I can trust and some things I can't. I can trust people to be who they are. I can't trust them to be who I want them to be, which I get caught in from time to time. I want a person to be a certain way. I want them to do certain things, and then when they don't, I'm disappointed. But I was really actually trying to trust them to do and be someone that they're not. So what I can trust is that people are going to be who they are. They're going to be who they've shown me that they are, not always who they say they are. I'm learning to trust people's actions and how they actually live, and to trust their patterns and what they've shown me of the truth about themselves. Otherwise, it's just wishful thinking, that they're going to be somebody or something that they're not. I can trust others to let me down. They are going to let me down. That may sound kind of depressing or morbid, but the truth is we're human. And if I'm trying to trust someone to never let me down, never disappoint me, it's somewhat foolish, really. They're human. I can trust that every person is on his or her own journey. They are wrestling through their own issues. They are doing the best they can today, even if it's not to my liking. I can trust that they're on their own path, and I can entrust them to their higher power, which I am not. I am no one else's higher power. Every person has their own. So those are some things I can and can't trust about other people. But with God, I can trust who He has shown me to be of Himself and who He says He is, as those things are consistent. And I may not always see it or recognize it, but when I really inspect, God is consistent, and I am on this journey of recovery. When I'm not trusting God, I tend to be addictive in my thinking and behaviors, more destructive in the things I do and say, because I'm trying to get my need met. I'm not trusting God to meet it, so I'm trying to get that need met in the best way that I can. But as I continue to practice trusting in my higher power and His will for my life and His care for my life, then I'm going to let go a bit more of the reins and really practice sensing where He's leading in each moment. And most of the time, my practice trusting Him has to do with letting go of the outcomes and just leaning into what He would lead me for my character today. Where's He leading me for my character? Almost always it has to do with humbling down and letting go of judgments and resentments and offering forgiveness, sometimes taking risks, owning my side of the street and taking responsibility for myself. Those are all things I know He wants me to practice today. So I can lean into that nudge on a daily basis. So anyway, I hope this is helpful for you as you think about trust. What are the things where have you been wounded in the past, and what ways is God calling you to move toward healing and wholeness and at least some progress in your trust relationship with Him today? God bless you today. I pray for you the knowledge of God's will for you today in your recovery and the power to carry that out. Stay the course in recovery. I'll be on it too.